Hi, I'm Hannah Brentz. I am a licensed independent clinical social worker, and I'm a registered yoga instructor with a private practice in Massachusetts. I have a bachelor's and master's degree in religious studies, and I've seen firsthand how toxic fundamentalist religious communities can be very damaging. So thanks for being here. Before we jump into today, remember to subscribe to the Theology Therapist channel, click the bell button to get notifications when all new releases come out. If you find any of this helpful, feel free to leave a comment and share with a friend. Let's get started. Hi, welcome. Did you have any trouble logging in today? No, it all went fine. I just finished with a yoga class, and so I ran and logged on, and so that's why I'm a little frazzled and out of breath. Okay, great. Well, today might look a little bit different than other sessions because I have a bunch of questions to ask about why you've come to therapy today, your experience growing up, and some of your goals. You don't have to know all of the answers, and there are no right answers. So that's just a heads up. Before we dive into the paperwork, I just want to take a minute and review the intake packet that you saw before today and answer any questions that you might have. Sound good? Sure. I can't wait to get started, but I'm a little nervous. Oh, I'm so glad you told me. It is very normal to feel nervous. If you ever feel like it's too much, just let me know and we'll take a pause. Maybe do a grounding exercise, and we'll only go back to it when you're feeling ready. Okay, yeah, thanks for letting me know. That makes me feel a lot better. Of course. So before the appointment, you filled out some paperwork, and I'd like to go over some of the things in the packet. First, it's important to know that whatever you say here is completely confidential, with only a few exceptions. If you are an imminent threat to yourself or to others, then I will have to break confidentiality and file a report with appropriate authorities. If there is any sign of child, elder, or dependent adult abuse, then I'd have to file a report in that case as well. Except for these occasions, what's said here stays here. Okay, yeah, I don't think that will be an issue. Usually when this happens, we've talked about it beforehand and we've developed a plan. Okay, sounds good. So I just want to go over consent for a minute. As we've just talked about, everything that's said here stays here, unless in the circumstances as we discussed a minute ago. Otherwise, HIPAA protects your privacy and your information, and so what we talk about here is confidential. So for example, if a family member was to contact me, I wouldn't be able to confirm or deny if you were a client of mine. If you would like me to discuss your care with other people, then you can talk to me about that and sign a release of information. There are times when I may recommend that this happen, like in the case of coordinating with other medical professionals, but it is still always your decision. So you might be like, why would you need to coordinate with other medical professionals? What this usually looks like, or kind of most commonly looks like, is sending a letter to your primary care doctor and informing them of having a shared mutual client and offering for them to contact if they're ever interested or if it ever feels like it becomes a need. This is especially helpful, having this in place with medical providers ahead of time, because if, when crises happen, they're unexpected. And so it's kind of hard to get this in place when the crisis is happening. And so that's why we talk about this ahead of time. Typically, doctors don't do this. They typically don't, they're hard to get a hold of, is what I'm trying to say. And that's because they're really busy. But it's a good practice to have this in place. And it's also a good support to have. Sure, I can sign a release for my psychiatrist. Okay, I'll send that over to you. I just want to check in with you. Do you have any questions about confidentiality? Do you want to sign a release for any of your medical providers, or would you like to think about it? No, I don't think so. Okay, so that was consent and confidentiality. Next, I would like just to run over social media and communication policies. So I am on social media, and you are welcome to connect with me there by following or subscribing to those channels, but it's helpful for me to clarify ahead of time the nature of social media. As you know, it's very public. So because of that, and in order to protect your privacy, I can't follow you back or respond directly to any messages. If you decide to like or share or comment on anything that I've posted, that is a risk to your privacy. But you can choose whether or not you would like to take that. If I post something or you see something on social media that you would like to discuss, it's best to bring it with you to the session. Do you have any questions or like any concerns about that? Kind of sucks, but I get it. Okay, yeah, what sucks about that exactly? Well, it seems kind of one-sided. Like, stuff happens on TikTok and it's just easier to message about it directly instead of like saving and bringing it. I hear that, and what you're saying totally makes sense. It feels one-sided that you can engage with me, but I cannot engage back with you. Unfortunately, that is just the downside of social media. And protecting the work and the relationship that we have in this therapy room is the most important thing. So if you don't want to connect on social media because that feels like icky or bad or just like too sucky, no obligation to do that, and I am not offended. Do not feel bad. That's true. Yeah. I mean, when you put it like that, it makes sense. Okay, the other thing about privacy is addressing the reality that we could run into each other in public. If that happens, I'll take my cue from you. If you'd like to say hi, then I would love that. If you'd like to act like we don't know each other, that works for me too. I'm totally okay either way. Okay, yeah, I never thought about it like that before. It may or may not happen, but I'd like you to know ahead of time that whatever you choose is cool with me. Okay, great. The last thing about privacy is communication. Email and text are not secure or private ways to communicate. So if you have something important that you need to talk to me about, you should save that for our next meeting. If we don't have one coming up, then finding a time that we can meet for next and scheduling an appointment is going to be important. If you need to discuss logistics, then email and text are appropriate means of communication. They're okay. Any questions? I've used a therapy subscription before, and I could text or message the therapist. I can't do that here? Great question. You can send me a message if you have a logistical question, but anything important should be done directly during the session. If the next appointment isn't soon enough, this may mean that we jump on a quick call. And if like going forward, it's been a while since we've had this conversation, you forget, you can always review the intake packet for more information about phone calls and communication outside of session. Okay, great. The last thing that I want to go over now is the cancellation policy. So the deadline to cancel an appointment in my practice is 24 business hours prior to the appointment. Otherwise, you're responsible for the fee of the session. Any questions? No, that's pretty typical. This is typically how the first few minutes of the first session goes. We then have a conversation about stressors, what brought them into therapy, family and social supports, family of origin, vocation, substance use, and any previous therapy experience. I really like to end the first session by talking about goals. I think that it gives us a little bit of forward thinking and kind of instills some hope. And this way we make a plan of where we're going to begin our therapy journey. And if we have time, then we typically practice like one new quick coping skill, like maybe a breathing exercise or a way to think about something that's been, particularly troubling, things like that. This way, in between the first session and the second session, like that can be some like vulnerable time there. And this way there's something to kind of practice and feel like actionable, feel good about. Have you ever thought about therapy and been nervous about what the first session is like? I hope this gives you an idea of what you can expect. Remember, every therapist is different, so it will be different than this role play. But the first session is generally a time to set expectations. It was great to have you here today. I hope you enjoyed this. If you liked it, remember, leave me a little comment and let me know if you have any questions about it, or let me know like what came up for you during your first therapy appointment, and that way we can address some of those things. Be well, and I'll see you next week.